If you want to see how I transform this wood guitar, then keep watching. Well, hello my friends, welcome back to the channel if you're returning. If you are new, welcome to you as well. On this channel, we do lots of budget-friendly crafting and we are starting right now. For our first inspiration, I'll be using this Martha Stewart wood frame, which is being distributed through Plaid. I've been using these in a few of my DIYs, and I've been mixing these two Folkart paint. One is Calypso Sky, the other one I don't quite remember the name of that one, and I'm gonna set that aside because I did not want one to be more dominant than the other. I didn't want the color to be too bright either. And for a little ombre effect, I added a little apple barrel yellow flame, and I blended the paint as I painted, just picking up a little on the brush and spreading that on, and then going back and picking up another color and then just spreading that. And I did that on both sides of the frame, just getting a little of the yellow in there. You didn't see a lot of the yellow, but it's in there somewhere. And I did that until the entire frame was covered. And of course, whichever color you wanted to be more dominant, you would use more of that shade. And then I just dried that. And this is what it looks like now that it's dried. And you notice that the blue is showing up a little bit more prominent. I got this burlap fabric from the Dollar Tree. I've had this in my stash since last year. And I'm going to glue that onto our insert or our inside piece. So I'm using some tacky glue and I'm just spreading that until it became tacky, as the name suggests. And then I took my fabric and placed that over the insert or the inside piece, put a piece of parchment paper over that, and I am just heating the tacky glue, and that is just to make sure that it seals properly. And once I got that down, then I'm going to cut off the excess fabric. To remove the excess, I place it on the cutting mat and I'm using the fabric cutter to cut around. Now you can use the scissors if you don't want to use this, or if you don't have this, definitely a scissors can be used. And then you won't need the cutting board if you're using the scissors. So once I got that removed, before I added it to my frame, I am just going over the frame with a little Mod Podge to seal the paint in and to give it a finished look. This one was so easy, my friends, so easy. So I dried it with the heat gun and then placed it back in the frame. And this is no longer a picture frame, but a very beautiful coastal decor or shelf sitter. And this is what it looks like. Now for further embellishment, I had this little piece of nautical rope or a very thick jute cord, and I was trying to decide what I needed to do with it. I was gonna make a little bow, but it wasn't long enough, so I came up with another idea. So here I am just using the lighter to burn off the fuzzies, and then now I'm going to try and make like a knot, one of those sailors knots. And I did something fancy. I was surprised, very proud of myself for having come up with that. But then it was a little challenging to get it to fit like how I wanted it. But eventually I conquered. I won this match. And to ensure that it stayed in place, I just used a little hot glue to keep the where the rope connected to each other, and then just glued it onto the frame and then glued down the ends. And then for further embellishment, I thought that this needed something else. So I had these little loose flowers that I purchased from Shane last year, and I've been using these, so cute. So here I am just selecting some that looked like the color of the frame, and I'm just going to glue those down at the bottom left corner. And as I glue them down on the bottom left corner, I saw that I could actually do the same thing for the other side. So I selected some more and then glued those down. But of course that was after I turned off the camera, so you will see that in the final reveal. And this is done, my friends. Let me know what you think about this one. Love it. So this is What Would You Make, the playlist that is hosted by Brenda from Rustic and Lace DIY and myself, Christine, Divine Designs. And every month we have a guest host, and this month is Marika from Marika Creation. And as usual, this playlist is all about using wood in your DIY. I will leave our links down in the description box below. You can check out the channels as well as the playlist. Now let's jump into our next inspiration. Now here is our little wooden guitar. I got this in a grab box from Michael's over the fall when they were selling out their fall stuff, and it came in a Halloween box, and don't do anything Halloween, but this was so cute I had to keep this one. So I'm going to transform this, not entirely. I do love the blue on it. I'm going to keep that, but I'm just using now some strips of masking tape to tape down the areas that I don't want to touch or want any paint to get on. And I'm just going around this side here. And then I'm going to take my white Folkart Adirondack, and I'm going to give this, because the print and the pink is there, and I'm using white to cover that up. Of course, you know you have to give maybe 2 or 3 good coverage. And because that paint is chalk paint and I want a little moisture or a little smoothness, I added some paint, the acrylic plastic paint. And you see how smoothly this is going on. If it was just a chalk paint, it would have been harder to paint it. So I'm just going all the way around and just making sure that each layer dries before I add the next layer, because you want to do that. If you don't do that, then you're going to be lifting off the paint that you just put down. And you keep going until you get good coverage. And that's what I was going for. Now this is all dry. I'm now removing the paint, the tape. I love this part, always so fulfilling. And this is what it looks like, my friend. Now, I didn't want mine to be distressed, so I left it chalk white or full stark white, because that's what I was going for. Now I got this Nautical rope from the Dollar Tree, and I am going to just go right around the edge here with the rope. So I added a lot of hot glue, placed the rope on that, and then held it in place long enough so it could dry properly. And then I'm going all the way around this little arch section, just adding the hot glue and placing the rope on top of that, holding it in place until it dries. So once I went all the way around, I just cut that off and glue down the end. And the inside there looks like a boat, so why not? Next, I took the finger dabber and a little antique wax, and I'm just going around the edge slightly, not too much distressing, just to make it defined. So rather than using the brush, the dabber worked fine. Now here I took Folkart Creamy Coral, and I'm just using the end of a sponge brush with that wooden section there to give me some dots, and that is just to mimic where the top of the guitar was with the strings. And then to just go right around the neck of it now, I just glue down the end of the jute cord, and I'm wrapping this around a couple times. And all of this is embellishment. You're free to do whatever you want to do. If you have stickers, you can add it here. If you want to draw, you can draw. If you want to add more stuff, if you want to whatever, you have a blank canvas here. Just as the white is showing like a blank canvas, you can do whatever you want to do. Now here I decided to add a little beaded tassel, so I'm making a small tassel. I just wrapped the jute around my finger a couple times and then just cut off what I wanted, then just tie the neck of it and then slit the ends. And now I'm going around to just tie that on. I painted some wooden beads. 2 of them were natural and 2 I used the leftover blue paint from the one earlier and just painted those. And then I tied on my tassel, glued down the ends. And here I have this bag of shells from the Dollar Tree years now. I thought that this coral looking one would blend in perfectly with the spots at the top. So I selected that. And I'm using some cement glue as well as some hot glue to glue that on. And then now I'm just adding some Mod Podge to seal the paint. I thought of adding some extra stuff on this, like, you know, add some rub-on transfers. I didn't have anything that looked beachy, so I just left it as is, and I thought it looked cute. Now here is our next inspiration. This is a set of wooden anchors from the Dollar Tree Nautical section last year in my stash. Painted that with 2 good coats of the chalk paint. And now I'm blending paints again with my 2 blue paints. Blended those and I'm just painting the tip of our anchor as well as the top. And then I took a piece of jute cord, glued that down at the back, and then just wrapped that around a few times and then glued it down back at the end. And this one is simple, quick, easy, and uncomplicated. Done. I'll be using 2 pieces of scrap wood randomly cut. Then I took the sanding block and I'm sanding down the edges just to make sure that they are smooth. And I got this piece of wood from the hardware store. I love to go in there and collect scrap. Next, I placed 2 pieces of masking tape on both pieces. And then I'm going to give this 2 good coats of Folkart chalk paint in Adirondack. Now that's dry. I'm not going to remove my tape just yet. So I'm going to be doing reverse stenciling. So I'm just peeling off letters to spell the words sun. Well, I started out with sunshine and then I changed my mind and I did sea and sunshine. And you want to make sure that those are secured on your wood. So I'm just using my finger to press them in. And then I'm using my mixed paint again, these 2 shades of blue, mixing them together. And once I mix them together, I'm going to go all over the board, just paint those. My friends, if you are still here and enjoying the content, go ahead and give it a big like for me. Hit that thumbs up button. And if you have not yet subscribed, I would love if you would do so. Now I will be removing the letters and I'm removing them while the paint is still wet. You don't want your paint to dry too much because then it's going to pull up the white that is underneath. So I'm just removing those and you can see the word peeking through under there, and this is called reverse stenciling. And now I am giving it a complete dry, making sure that everything is dried properly. And then to get a little distress, I'm using a piece of sandpaper and I'm just distressing that. And to make the edges pop, I took a piece of baby wipe and some antique wax and I'm just going around, just lightly distressing the edges. And I'm loving these already. So now that's done, it's time to remove the tape. And the tape is where I'll be adding the wood glue, because you want to have the raw wood to raw wood when you're adding your wood glue. And that's why the tape was there. So now I'm taking some wood glue as well as a little hot glue and just applying those on both pieces. And then just stack the smaller on top of the larger piece and we have sea and sunshine. Next, I took some Mod Podge and I'm just going over the surface just to seal everything and to give it a finished look. Next, I took this clothespin with a little sailboat glued on the top. This came from the Dollar Tree in the Nautical section. I've had this in my stash for maybe 2 years now. So I like that the red was peeking out a little bit on the boat. So I decided to paint the tip of the clothespin with some red paint, and took a little white paint and just dotted in some polka dots just to finish this off. And then I just added a little hot glue, well, not a little hot glue, lots of hot glue, and just glued it right there. And this one is done. Complete. Love it. Now this is our scripture, Proverbs 22 verses 1 to 2. A good name is more desirable than a great riches. To be esteemed is better than silver or gold. Rich and poor have this in common. The Lord is the maker of them all. So here is the final reveal of all that we created today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed crafting with me today. Let me know which one of these was your favorite down below. Be sure to check out Brenda's channel as well as Marika's channel and the playlist. I just love how the guitar turned out, and those other little things you see in there like the sand dollar and the starfish, those will be coming up in another video soon, so be sure to return to the channel just to see how I made those. And there you have it, my friends. Thank you so much for watching. I enjoyed crafting with you today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more creative projects like these. And tap that notification bell as well so you never miss an upload. Need more inspiration? Click right here for other fun DIYs. Happy crafting, stay safe, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye!